Thank you all for coming here today to see this presentation. And it's going to be an overview about understanding what collaboration is. And I think you might be surprised in some ways, how much we're already doing. I know there's a big push for the school to collaborate more and more. And through this presentation, I can show you some things that we've been doing all along. We just don't realize them as collaboration. So the first thing we're going to look at is the school. Because when you start collaborating and you start putting together groups for specific purposes for collaboration, you need to know the dynamics of your school system and what's offered out there, because it goes cross campus. And in our school system, we have Umpire Campus with 59 students in the K-6. We have Umpire Campus 712 with 48 students. Wicks Elementary has 296 students. And Vanderbilt Elementary Campus has 169 students. And here at the high school we have 398. So we serve as a school district 970 students at this point. And we have students coming into our school every day, so it's growing. I'm going to talk about different types of collaborative teams. We'll be talking about what collaboration really means and how to organize effective teams. And part of that is knowing the needs of your school and your students. And this shows how many students that we're serving, and that gives us an outline for the need in our school. I'm Lisa Green. I teach special education and resource language arts for 712 here at the high school. Collaboration. The definition for collaboration is pretty vague. The action of working with someone to produce or create something. That is the whole definition. And the question is, who are we working with? What are we trying to produce? And who are we going to benefit with it? The first collaborative team that I'm familiar with is an IEP team. What? And you'd think it was just about meetings, but those team members work year-round for that student, and it is a collaborative team. The individualized education plan is a plan or program developed to ensure that a child who has a disability identified under the law is attending an elementary or secondary educational institution, and they're receiving specialized instruction and related services. And the question is, who decides what those services are? And that's where the IEP team comes in. First, you have a special education teacher. And the special education teacher's job is to plan the accommodations, to modify, to find modifications that will help that student succeed. We assess their progress, and we help determine their eligibility for the program. The second member of an IEP team is the general education teacher. Valuable information. The general education teacher integrates that student into the general ed classroom. They adapt their lesson plans and their methods. They provide, in meetings, they can provide us with student levels in their class. What are they doing? How are they doing? Are they seeing that there's a need that we're not addressing? Is what we have for accommodations and modifications enough for that student to help them successful? And the only way we know that is from that general education teacher. The special education supervisor can step in when administrators can't be there. And she's there to support the program and make sure that everything is up to the law. She answers questions. She's our expert. The assessment personnel is occasionally at our meetings, but it's not required at every meeting, but she's there to explain the data from the evaluations of why that student is eligible for special education, and she uses that data to make recommendations for determining their disability, for determining what needs they have and what areas that they have needs in. Your administrator is there for support. He is the leadership, and he is the expert in the policies and procedures of the school. And then you have the counselor. Counselors should be in those IEP meetings. They are a part of scheduling our students, making sure that they're in classes that they can succeed in, that are not overwhelmed with students. They also are there because they know the services that are available to the family and student for mental health and family issues. And then you have our speech, occupational therapists, and physical therapists. And our OT is there to talk about the fine motor skills. They do assessments and they help work with living and independent skills. And Billy Hartridge is our OT. We have 2 physical therapists. I did not write the name down. No, we have 1 physical therapist, and they're there to enhance the physical functioning. Some kids have some problems maybe with flexibility and things that they need to be able to do. And then in speech, we have 2 speech pathologists, Callie Miller and Brianna Redmond, and they evaluate and then take the kids through therapy to improve their communication skills, and that's very important in the general education classroom. The parent is there to nurture the student, to guide them, to support the student and the teacher in their decisions, and to facilitate their education. They give us input. They let us know from their view what they see, where the child's succeeding, where the child needs help. And then the student is there to self-advocate. This meeting is about them. It is for their benefit. Speaking out, they can give us authentic, real-world feedback to help us make determinations on what's helping and what's not helping, what needs to be changed, what they no longer need. Our second collaborative team is a response to intervention team. And response to intervention is a process used by educators to help students who are struggling with a skill or lesson. Every teacher uses interventions. The interventions are a set of teaching procedures to help any student succeed in the classroom. And it's not only for students with special needs or learning disabilities. We have a lot of general ed students who get lost, they get stuck, and sometimes they need that intervention. A response to intervention team consists of a facilitator. That facilitator opens the meeting, they welcome everyone there, make sure everyone that needs to be there is there, and they're there to describe goals, guide through the stages. They check for agreement whenever a decision is made on this intervention will help this student, or whether it won't help and they need to be moved to a different stage of intervention. And he encourages everybody to stay on task with it and not get lost. The recorder takes notes. They monitor the progress and they make sure that they can paraphrase those notes to get the key points in for the meeting. The timekeeper makes sure things are moving on schedule and that we don't spend 4 hours on something that should take 30 minutes. And the case manager and RTI coordinator is there to meet with the teacher before the meeting. A teacher will refer a student for intervention. The coordinator will go see her and say, this is the data we're going to need to make decisions on this. They're going to suggest additional data if needed, and then they're going to meet with the teachers after that to see if that intervention is actually working or if we need to move to another stage. And then the referring teachers, because the teacher who refers the student, they know where that issue is and they know what strategies they've tried already. And those are all factors when determining what RTI level a student should be in and what strategies need to be used. And then there's co-teaching. Co-teaching is a collaboration between two teachers. It's when two teachers pair together to share the responsibility of teaching a classroom. They merge two classes together. They share planning, instruction, and assessing students. And this is most often seen with a general ed teacher and a special ed teacher sharing a classroom with all their students. The benefits for teachers are you have someone to help you monitor the behavior of the class while you're teaching. It builds relationships between the teachers. It gives support during the instruction, no matter what model that you choose to follow. It helps support the accommodations for those students with IEPs. It gives you more opportunities for more flexible groupings for your students, and you get feedback from a teacher who's seeing you do the job. This is what I saw that was great. This is what I saw that may need improvement, or I saw students that were losing interest. It lets you cover your content more effectively to have two voices in the room. And that supports mastery of the students. There are 6 main models of co-teaching teams. The first one is one teaching and one observing. And I think I put this on the slides, but in one teaching, one observing, you have one teacher that is doing the instruction, and the second teacher is taking notes. They're taking data. Which students are having difficulty? Which students are doing well? Choosing, helping to make the decisions on what grouping the students would need to be in for certain activities. The second model is station teaching. And this is where you have different stations in the room for your students, and you group those students at those stations. This station you may be learning about the history of what you're doing. This station you may be learning about the people in history. So each station has a specific role and specific content to be teaching, and the students rotate so that they get it all in a smaller group on a more one-on-one basis. In the parallel teaching, the classroom is divided into 2 groups, and you have your general ed teacher teaching the higher level children in the room at a more brisk pace with more details and information. And on the other half of the room, you have a special ed teacher teaching your lower students or your students at risk the same material, maybe chunking it into smaller pieces, maybe delivering it in a different way, but it's the same content. So all students are receiving the same information. It's just half the room is receiving it in this format and the other half the room is receiving it in that format. The fourth model is alternative teaching. Alternative teaching, the purpose would be reteaching at-risk students while providing accelerated content to everybody else. The description of it would be, based on previous assessments for this content, both teachers decide which students are at risk, and one teacher works with the high-risk group while the other continues to provide accelerated instruction. So these kids are not getting it. Pull them over here and let's reteach this so that we can catch them up with everyone else. Team teaching, that's my favorite. Team teaching, the purpose is to share the role of lead teacher in delivering instruction and providing student support. The description says, while team teaching, co-teachers should act as one brain in 2 bodies. For example, both teachers may facilitate a discussion while performing different roles, such as writing on the board or emphasizing key points. So, in a model of team teaching, while Beverly is teaching the class and they're filling out a Venn diagram on the board, I might be filling in that information in response to a specific question. And then we would swap roles. I would give them a higher level thinking question. As they respond, she would record their responses on the board. And it's kind of a give and take thing, and everything is divided equally. One teaching, one assisting. This is one teacher leading the instruction while the other teacher works through the students, assisting them when they need them, answering the questions so it doesn't disrupt the teacher leading the instruction because someone is out there handling all these little things. Another form of collaboration are grade level teams. And this is when everyone from grade level gets together and takes the system and supports and interventions that have been developed for a multi-tiered system of support, which is RTI, and help implement it for the educators and students in that specific grade. Like all 7th grade teachers are working together to make sure that these interventions are being carried out for these students at risk in every classroom. Then you have the team members would be the principal, who facilitates and ensures that everybody is on task. You have your instructional coach, who's the expert in the area that you're discussing. Like reading. Like if it's specifically at-risk students for reading, they're going to be an expert in reading strategies that they can share with everyone. Your special education teachers need to be there because not only because we share students, but also because we're already experts in modifying this lesson, this curriculum to meet this student's needs. So we may be able to give you strategies that you haven't thought of before to help with specific students. And the general education teachers, because they are the experts in their content area. Okay? That is what they do. For a positive behavioral intervention support system. It's a PBIS. And it's a process to create a safer and more effective school environment. On your PBIS team, you have your team leader. Okay. Clarifies and monitors that everybody stays on task. You have a recorder that takes notes on decisions and keeps track of the records and meetings. Wait, we didn't go anywhere. Then you have your reporter communicator. This is the person that says, okay, this team decided on this positive behavior implementation we're going to take for this school. This is what it is. This is how it works, so that everyone can be involved in it. The data analyst takes information from reports on behavior through the school, what's working, what's not working, and she charts it for you so that you can clearly see, is your behavior getting better? Is your behavior getting worse? She's able to tell you a story with her data, with her charts, so that you can see where your school is headed. Then you have a behavior specialist, and they are there because they know the behavior theories and scientifically based methods that have worked for other schools. You have your timekeeper to make sure things are moving and your meetings don't get out of control. And you have your district or external coach, which is usually someone that comes in or is assigned to assist the team in organizing that systematic change in your school. We have student-assisted teams, and that sounds pretty scary, right? We already collaborate in these teams every day, all year long. Includes a parent, and when appropriate, the student, and it's a positive problem-solving intervention process. Do we not do that with all of our students every day? SATs teams include a parent, and the parent's there for support from home. The student to self-advocate, to take responsibility for their education and their behavior, and to ask for clarification when they don't understand what's going on. And you have a teacher, an administrator, or a counselor that's there to acknowledge the student, clarify any questions the student and parent has about policy and procedure, and to provide support for the family and the student. Your curriculum teams, which we've had curriculum teams, we have one now, is responsible for the educational content as well as external instructional supports. So your content area leader is there to organize, to keep people on task. This is where our students are most at risk. This is what we need to work on. Let's come up with strategies to improve this area. And then your content area teachers are there to provide input. And the purpose for them is to improve pedagogy. Improve our teaching of students. Co-teaching is a curricular team. And then collaborating with parents. Parent collaboration for general in the school is parent-teacher conferences or meetings at the beginning of school, or when there's some kind of issue that the parent brings to you or you bring to them. Parent collaboration in special education goes a little bit deeper because we have meetings with these parents on a fairly regular basis for failing grades, if it's time to review to see if they need a new evaluation, if it's time to review something on their IEP that's not working, and at the end of the year to see where are we going with them next year, what's going to be best for them then. My question is how much positive interaction do you have? How much positive collaboration with parents do you have? And I don't have very many students, so it's easy for me, once a week to email or text or call every one of them. But if you have 130 students, if you broke that list down, just divide it equally, say alphabetically, whatever. And this week, I'm going to make some positive contact with these 7 students, okay, with their parents. Some kind of positive contact. Every week for a semester, you have made a positive contact with every parent. It's just something to think about. And then education. Paraprofessionals in special education, they serve the students, they serve the teachers. Some of their roles include working with one-on-one with students. They monitor when the teacher's out for conference. They help gather supplies and materials for activities. They monitor students' testing in alternate locations. They assist with behavior management. And a lot of times they're co-teaching with the special ed teacher in the classroom. In general education, paraprofessional roles generally include facilitating in classrooms for online classes and filling in for teachers who are out for various reasons, monitoring behavior in the hallways before, during, and after school, and during lunch and breakfast. And on the question of how to refer a student for special education, first of all, you need to identify the area of concern. Where is this child having the most trouble? Initiate interventions within the classroom, RTI. try these interventions, go through those steps. This isn't working, let's try something a little bit more intense. When that's not working, it's time to start gathering data on their lack of progress in that area. If they've made progress, then they don't need referral for special education. The intervention worked. And then you speak to a special education teacher and the administration regarding, this is the data that I've collected, this is my concern, and then talk to them about the referral process. For a referral, once a teacher refers the student, writes out the referral form, they have 21 days, I'm doing this too fast, they have 21 days to set a conference and make a decision. Do we need to evaluate the student? Is there truly something here saying that there's a disability? And then your conference, yes, we need to evaluate. If that decision is made, they have 60 days to complete the evaluation. Once that evaluation is complete, there are 30 days to make a decision. Does the student qualify? What is their disability? What is their need? And make an initial IEP with modifications. So I hope this helped you to understand a little bit more about collaboration, what kind of collaboration already happens here, and what kind of collaborative groups could be happening here, and a little bit more about the special education services. Because, guys, we're not just here for the kids, we're here for you. We have a little knowledge that we are willing to share if it helps other students, even if they're not just for our students, okay? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to?
Is this, I know at one point there was talk of a special ed classroom going into.
The general ed class?
Yes.
Yes.
Where there are will be two teachers and it'll all be co-taught. Is that still the move?
That is the push across the state of Arkansas, is to have more co-teaching classrooms. And there are schools in the state of Arkansas that have implemented co-teaching. And one thing that's really important to remember, if the co-teachers don't mesh and get to know each other, then it's not going to work. And if they don't have the same philosophy of teaching and the same goals, it's not going to work. Both teachers need to want to be there together and to understand that you're splitting up your job. You don't have to do as much because somebody's doing half of it. And as far as accommodations for special ed students in that classroom, you've got their special ed teacher and they're giving them their accommodations. So it's not any additional work on you. But yeah, they're still pushing for it. I'm kind of pushing for it. I would like to go into co-teaching at least a couple of classrooms next year because I have 2 volunteers who are interested. And the models for co-teaching, you don't have to say, okay, we're going to do this all year long. This is, you have this big lesson. You may start out with one model and change depending on grouping and need of your class during that lesson and rotate through all of those models. It depends on what the needs are. So.
Would you mind explaining team teaching, the model of team teaching a little bit more, maybe what the roles are for both?
Okay, I just had to write a lesson plan for it, so let me go through that. I chose to do a lesson plan for the historical fiction novel, The Boy Who Dared. And the opening of that is doing a graphic organizer. And in a team teaching situation, there are 2 essential questions that really open it up. And it's about war. How does it affect families? And what causes it? Those are things to discuss before you ever start talking about a World War II book. So if we drew the diagram on the board on day 1, put war in the middle of it, then on day one teacher would lead with an essential question, and the second teacher would be recording what the students are saying on it. And then the second teacher would then present that second essential question, and the first teacher would add new responses to it. If you had planned an extensive lesson like I did with that one and had several activities that were to occur, then this teacher would lead this activity and the other would handle handing out supplies and helping students. And then the roles were reversed for the next activity. In the reading of the book, it's divided up in sections, pages of reading. In one half of the room, you might have a little bit larger groups reading independently. And in the other half of the room, you might have smaller groups reading collaboratively together to each other, or text to speech for their reading. And then when it comes to questioning, some of the group may do their higher level questioning for comprehension on paper, while others prefer the one-on-one discussion. So you could divide into those groups and have the two teachers to handle both sides of the situation. And then when it came to assessing and grading, it would be sitting down and saying, okay, I'm gonna grade this activity, you're gonna grade this activity, we're gonna split these up and both grade these. But you're all teaching the same lesson at the same pace, using different methods depending on the students in the room. And like the different activities require different kinds of grouping. So, did that help?
Yes, thank you.
Any other? Everybody happy? Well, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green.